Hello, everyone. I'm back. I'm hoping you're all doing very well. I'm glad I've had contact with some of you over the last few weeks. Everybody seems to be managing this quite well. Everything starts going back to how it was before very soon. Nothing's really changed, though. So it's going to be very interesting to see how all this pans out. But it's, all very interesting, really. But in theory, nothing's changed. So it'll be really interesting to see how people like going back to how things were. My goodness, I've got such a mess around me at the moment, trying to be comfortable with everything. Hey, Carla, how you going? Thank you for coming in today. Alrighty, so I'm going to pull a card from the Animal Spirit deck to start off with, as we always do. Okay. That'd be really nice. I need to get a taller chair, right? Okay, here we go. Oh, we have the swan coming out today. How beautiful. Alrighty, the swan. Okay. So we have a water creature. How are you going, Carla? I know the swan's here somewhere. Oh, there we go. Alrighty, here we go. So the swan. This is about being effortless, creativity, sensitive mystic, and elegant power. The swan represents heightened creativity. In Hindu mythology, the goddess Saraswati, the embodiment of language, creativity, and artistry, rides on the back of this graceful creature. The swan is ready to take us there to the fluid realm of writing, creating, and reflecting. This potent and healing energy is not to be taken for granted or taken lightly. When the swan card appears, your soul is calling for attention, for solo time. An inner voice is waiting to be heard, an inner vision likely to be revealed. So I'm really good, thanks. So when in balance, this is infinitive creative power. So I think that here, some of you are being asked to sort of go inside and sort of embrace that creative side of you. Hey, Susan, how you going? Embrace the creative side of you. I think that sometimes we sort of go about our business and do what we need to do, and we don't always give ourselves time to be who we are. And I think this is what this card is asking you to do, to be creative, to let your creativity flow. Beautiful. Alrighty, we'll read a card from this oracle deck, and then I've got a couple of, it is definitely a time for introspection. I think that this is the best time, really. That's what it's good to use it for. I mean, quite honestly, it's been, how would you say, so enlightening, really, watching everybody else do the same thing. We're all sort of on a similar path, which is pretty amazing. And I think we've seen more of that than what we've ever done before. Oh, how lovely. You got the card of poised. So if you didn't have the swan doing the swan thing, then the poised looks like the swan anyway, which is beautiful. Okay, so 48. Okay, it's been really nice to get away from work at the moment. They've given me another task to do. I said I was having difficulty concentrating on the other one. So I've got a new list of things to do, and it's been awesome. I'm really well, thank you. Really well today. So that's poised. Now, its essential meaning is being ready, bringing something to light, and being at your best and confidence. So that goes beautifully with the swan card. So the oracle's message says you can be assured that you are ready for anything right now. You know what you need to, your skills are sharp, you've come to this place armed with wisdom and knowledge, and you sense a new phase of your life about to begin. Please respond to your confidence and trust you. This is an auspicious time to begin new things. Well, doesn't that sit beautifully with the swan? So being poised, spending time on yourself, but learning to be creative because you're about to come into a new period. I really don't know what's going to happen. I keep thinking that perhaps, when everything goes back to normal and everybody goes back to work, we're going to expect to get another wave of this COVID. It's inevitable. It hasn't gone anywhere. We're still dealing with the same virus. Nothing's changed. The only thing that's changed is the hospitals are more prepared now. And I think that's why the government slowed everything down in case the hospitals needed, to take in people. It's been really difficult for me. I don't know how everybody else has been. I mean, I have like 7 grandchildren and a great-grandchild that I can't get to see during this time. I do see my daughter's children a little more often, and my son brought his son out a couple of weeks ago, which was really beautiful because I got to catch up. Yeah, I think that's right, Carla. I think this is a time for us I think it's sort of brought to light for a lot of us how, perhaps we do put things on the back burner. We do put things aside that are really pleasant for ourselves. And it's sort of, even for me, I sort of sit back sometimes and I think, I've always wanted to do that. Why do you put it off? Why do you think you're, maybe never get around to doing it? Or, maybe it's something that you'll never get a chance to do. But at the end of the day, this is a time for really understanding that, if you want to do something and you want to achieve something, this is a great time to get in and do it. It's a beautiful time. And I think it's given us a little reminder of how short life really is in effect. Maybe some of us are a little bit more up the pointy end, but it doesn't really matter. There's no time like the present for jumping in and doing what you've always wanted to do. Why hold back? So it's definitely a time to embrace your true self and do what you want to do. Absolutely. But anyway, I was looking around for something to talk about today. I thought it'd be really nice to talk about something. We haven't got as many people on today, and that's okay. Anyway, I was having a look at this book, The Dance of the Wounded Souls. And I thought it was really nice here because it talks about self-worth. And I thought that's really good at the moment. So I want to read it to you so that perhaps for some of you it will make sense. Not only were we taught to be victims of people, places, and things, we were taught to be victims of ourselves, of our own humanity. We are taught to take our ego strength, our self-definition from external manifestations of our being, which was very much what the readings were about this morning. Our bodies are not who we are. They are a part of our being in this lifetime, but they are not who we truly are. Looks deteriorate, talent dissipates, intelligence erodes. If we define ourselves by these external manifestations, then we will be victimized by the power we give them. We will hate ourselves for being human and aging. Looks, talent, intelligence, external manifestations of our being are gifts to be celebrated, but they are temporary gifts. They are not our total being. They do not define us or dictate if we have worth. We were taught to do it backwards, to take our self-definition and self-worth from temporary illusions outside of or external to our beings. It does not work. It's dysfunctional. As was stated earlier, codependence could be more accurately called outer or external dependence. So depending on someone else, which is what codependence is, putting someone else's needs above yours. Hey, Hayley, how you going? Outside influences, people, places, and things, money, prosperity, and prestige, or external manifestations, looks, talent, and intelligence, cannot fill the hole within. They can distract us, make us feel better temporarily, but they cannot address the core issues. They cannot fulfill us spiritually. They can give us ego strength, but they cannot give us self-worth. True self-worth does not come from temporary conditions. True self-worth comes from accessing the external truth within, from remembering the state of grace that is our true condition. No one outside of you can define for you what your truth is. Nothing outside of you can bring you true fulfillment. You can only be fully filled by accessing the transcendent truth that already exists within you. This age of healing and joy is a time for each individual to access the truth within. It is not a time for gurus or cults or channeled entities or anyone else to tell you who you are. Outside agencies, other people, channeled entities, this book can only remind you of what you already know on some level. Hello, everyone. Accessing your own truth is remembering. It is following your own path. It's finding your bliss. So they're talking about what they call independence, looking outside of yourself for self-definition and self-worth. And I feel like you hear this often, where people say, "Oh, I want to be with someone because, if I'm with someone, I'll be happy." And it's sort of like, how can you be happy when you're with someone when really that truth is within you? So unless you're truly happy by yourself, and that's what it means, it doesn't mean that you have to be by yourself, that you shouldn't have someone in your life. When it's talking about that, it's saying that you will never find the right person for you if you're always looking on the outside of yourself. Oh, my whiteboard. Yeah. My daughter came over and did it for me yesterday. So I think that sometimes we forget, I used to always say to people, it's never validation. Beautifully put, Carla. I agree with you. There's this feeling that people want to feel that. And I talk to people often who say, if I had this, I would be great. If I had that, I'd be great. And I'm like, why aren't you great already? Then that thing that you want will make you feel even better than you are now. But you need to feel great before. But we tend to live in this sort of lack mentality where, we're always wanting for something else, whether it's something we want to eat because we feel satisfied by having a certain thing. I mean, how can a certain thing on the outside satisfy you? But how many times do you sort of think, I feel like chocolate, and you go and buy yourself a chocolate bar? Why are you feeling that you need a chocolate? It's really interesting, isn't it? So you're constantly going on the outside of yourself for that validation. And sometimes our validations aren't good. They aren't good things for us. And people do tend to sort of look for things outside to make themselves feel better. I wonder sometimes if, like the tarot cards and the shoes are really like that, whether that's our little bent for the outside world and whether that's what we want to make ourselves feel better. I don't know, possibly. But when it comes to relationships, I don't know, Carla. I think that maybe I've got a little older and a little wiser. I like to be by myself, but I've spent a lot of years on and off by myself, I guess. That's probably the best way to put it. And I've always felt quite comfortable being myself, but other people don't. They don't like to be by themselves. And some people will constantly find some way of sort of having people around them because they like to be around people. No, it's more about the type of person you are, because there are two types of people in the world. They're the introverts and the extroverts. Some people sit on the fence a little bit. But an extrovert gets all of their energy from the people around them. So they like to be in groups all the time, like to have people around them, and that's just an extrovert thing. Their energy comes from being around other people. When you're an introvert, your energy comes from being by yourself, and it's two distinctly opposite things. Now, for some unknown reason, people used to think if you were extroverted, you were really outgoing, and if you were introverted, you're a quiet person. But that's not true either. So an extrovert is someone who draws energy from other people, and an introvert is someone who draws energy from the silence, from the quiet, from the being alone. So, if you recognize how you draw your energy, what makes you feel good. So how you can often tell when you're an introvert, if you go into a really crowded place where there are a lot of people, say a shopping centre or, I don't know, museum, zoo, whatever, where there are a lot of people around, sometimes it can be very, very exhausting for an introvert. Now, an extrovert will really revel on that. But it doesn't mean that an introvert can't do those things. It's just we have to be aware that sometimes that draws a lot of our personal energy. It makes us feel very tired. But an extrovert will really relish the additional energy and will really love it, really love it. So Gigi's, yeah, sometimes, yeah, I sort of wake up during the night a little bit too. Sometimes I'm really good and can go to sleep. Other times I'll wake up quite lively. I don't think it matters either. Like people used to say, maybe if you get out more, maybe if you exercise more, maybe if you eat differently, maybe if you do. And I've tried everything, and it seems to be a pattern that develops as you get older, because you've got maybe, a different lifestyle, for example. But I find even when I'm busy, even when I'm running around, even when I'm really, really active, I still might not sleep quite so soundly that night. So I don't really know why that is. But I do know the differences between being sort of quite extroverted and also introverted. And like I said, that doesn't mean you can't be an outgoing introvert or a quiet extrovert. It's how do you get your energy? That's more what it's about. But it's we've got a couple of new people on today. How are you, Karen? So yeah, it is a really good time, and it is really, if whether you like to be around people or whether you like to be by yourself, it's still good to, sort of get to know yourself better and actually sort of find out what makes you tick, and maybe sort of put your time into, or time and energy. Yeah, your guides want time to talk to you, and it really is a time for listening. And you do need to do that every day. Otherwise, you don't get the messages downloading quite so well. And people often say to me, like, I don't, I have people who passed over, and I don't get contact from others from the other side. And I'm like, they're probably trying to contact you all the time, but if you're too busy, you're never going to hear the messages coming through. And you can do that yourself. What we do, anybody can do. Not everybody can do, probably as clearly as some people can do because they've had more practice. But you still get messages, and they come in the forms, like sometimes something will nag at you and nag and nag and nag at you, and you know that you need to be doing something, but it's really difficult to really understand that those are the messages you're getting through. So sometimes we keep ignoring them. It might be something like, you need to move house. I think it's about time you moved house, changed jobs, whatever. And we get the message come through once and we think, oh, well, that's not going to be a possibility at this time. So we ignore it. And then it starts getting stronger and stronger. And I always say to people, the universe will only poke you with a stick so many times, and then someone will throw the stick at you. Like, that's a tower moment. It's like you haven't listened, you haven't listened, you haven't listened. Now you need to listen. So when you're putting something off and putting something off, it's often your inner self or your higher self asking you to attend to something. And you need to sort of get into that. That's what you need to do to try and move yourself in a different direction. Sometimes it's just the way it is, and sometimes we ignore it until we're sort of put in the position where we need to do it quickly. The really funny part is when you are ready to do it, if you've had the push from the universe and you've been concerned about doing it, when you really get your mind into it and decide to make it happen, things just fall in place so beautifully. It's like everything just runs how it should. It's crazy. So it's sort of like they've just been waiting for you to make the decision, and then everything just rolls in the right direction then, which is really cool. But yeah, it is really a very different way of being. And that's what I was going to say to you, Carla, before. You can do some work on being alone if you find it hard to be by yourself. Maybe sort of do some self-work in understanding what sort of things, I have too, Hayley. What sort of things do you, do when you're by yourself? Are you using that time well? Because a lot of people don't really, how would you say? They don't really attend to the things that they really like to do. So we tend to sort of go, well, we've got extra time, I'll do some housework. Or I've got a bit of extra time, I'll whip out and do some gardening. Well, how about, I've got some extra time and I love to paint, so I might just paint today. So it makes it really difficult. It really does. Okay, now hang on a second. Laurie just asked me, parental alienation. Laurie, do you mean when your parents are not having anything to do with you, or when you're choosing to have distance from your own children? So when you talk about parental alienation, because a lot of people and a lot of people who have issues with their family around not being well, maybe we can look at narcissism, because that's a pretty good example. If you have a family who are very narcissistic, bully you, or treat you in a very poor way, sometimes you can choose to alienate yourself from your family. And often, and for many people, that's a really good thing, because what it means is you get the chance to not have to deal with the bullying or the, the bad behavior. Oh, your ex is keeping your children from you. Okay. I really, I don't, if there's no unhealthy reason for that. So I guess my thinking is, with children, after working with Department of Community Services for a while, there are times when children need to still see their parents, but they need to do it with some sort of accompanied adult, so they don't spend time alone with their children. And I sort of get that. But when an ex doesn't allow you to see your children at all, for whether it's, with them there or whatever else, I don't quite get that. And I don't understand why people choose to do it. Very often it's a very controlling thing to do, because if they've got that control, and often they play with the minds of the children too, by telling them that, the reason they're not seeing their parent is because of such and such. So they try to sort of poison people too. No, that's not bad, Gillian. People are all different. So I don't really know what to answer to you, Laurie, in regards to that. I don't really understand what someone's thinking is. If the person is thinking they're protecting their children by keeping someone away from someone, then I sort of get that. If the idea of that is, there's some cause for alarm, like abuse or mental health or whatever else. But, I don't understand why people use it as a control mechanism. It's really sad, and it's certainly not it's not a nice thing. And the courts do their best to make sure that people get visitation rights, but I know for a fact that that doesn't always happen either. So it makes it very difficult, yes. But other than go to the courts, get a good lawyer, and have, I don't know, planned visitations at least, some sort of visitation. But I've heard of it happening a lot, so it's pretty sad. Gillian just said she gets on so well with herself and she really appreciates herself. Is that bad? No, not at all. Everyone's different. There's no right or wrong. Some people, it's, some days I'm at work and I'm around people all day, and when I come home, I just want to be quiet. And sometimes people will ring, call, and want to speak, and I'm like, I've been talking to people all day. I don't feel like talking anymore. It's really exhausting. Other times, I'm absolutely hankering to get out there and speak to people. I think it just depends on your mood and who you are, and there's no right or wrong with that. But some people don't like to be alone. I have children, and one of them in particular never ever liked to be by themselves. They were too much in their own head, and they overthought things, and then they would get, really uncomfortable with it. But other people like to be by themselves. It's just the way we are, and it doesn't mean that you're going to be like that all the time. Oh yeah, see, so even though you've got parental. So hi Moira, how are you going? So Laurie, what you're saying is that the courts won't listen to you about the fact that you are not getting access to your children. Is that what you mean? I agree with you, Shishi. I agree with that statement really big. Sometimes, and that's why I think I was having trouble with this role I've been doing for the last few weeks, because I've been on the phone constantly to people, and I find it extremely draining speaking to people all the time. And I worked in a call center years ago, and it is really, really difficult. Oh, the courts are closed at the moment. Yeah, okay, that makes sense. Oh, Laurie, I'd be in touch with them straight away. As soon as they open back up again. Make sure you've got a really good lawyer or solicitor on side with you too, if you can. Because if you're not getting access and there's no reason for someone not to allow you access, they need to fight for you. They need to fight for you. And that's what I said, even if it's sort of, only a small amount of access. Yeah, good. I'm glad you've got a good lawyer on side. But I can't explain why people do it. I really can't. I don't understand it at all. The only time I understand it is if you've got a parent who's, abusive or cruel, or, we used to deal with people who obviously even sexual abuse, where the children got some access to the parent, even if it was only on if they wanted to, of course, if they wanted to, but it would be on a screen. So even parents, parents in jail and things like that would still get access to their children. But it's just, access that's sort of monitored. It's not left, as it were. But I don't know what's more damaging for a child if they are being taught that the other parent isn't worthy. I don't think that's healthy for children at all. So, yeah, it's really hard. Hopefully the courts will be back in soon. Are you in Australia or in England? Because I think things are really getting back to, the kids go back full time to school next week. We're all back. That's what I said. It's all going back to normal. It's really weird because nothing's changed. We still got infected people. We've still got a virus out there. Nothing has changed at all. The only thing we do have now, which we didn't have before, is preparation. Oh, you're in America. Yeah, I don't know, because your states would be all different too in regards to how they manage court access and everything too. So that makes a little bit of a difference, because I'm pretty sure that you have different rules across states. It's not much the same. They're in Australia, even though we have state to state. Overall, we still have a federal government that still makes a lot of those rules around child protection. They went back yesterday in New Zealand. Wow. I don't know. Has New Zealand had any new cases, or are they completely? Because we were almost completely finished in 3 or 4 states last week, and then all of a sudden they've all got new cases. So someone's travelling around Australia sick, which is pretty weak, but they probably don't know they're sick. Some people have hardly any symptoms at all. So, but yeah, I know that, even though, no cases for days and days. Well, in theory, you can't have any cases for at least, you'd have to make it 21, maybe even 28 days to really be completely clear. Because, as I said, 14 days for the virus the virus is still contagious, but someone could contact someone at the end of that 14 days. So, yeah. Yeah, absolutely. Mental health is just as important as physical health. Absolutely. But no reason to keep your children away from you if you should be able to see your children unless you're going to prove to be dangerous to them. And if that's the case, then you can always have, video chats with them or whatever, and just have someone there to make sure nothing's said that can be taken the wrong way. But there should still be some access. And look, I mean, we all do it. We have video access with our own children in lockdown if we can't see them. So, I mean, that's how we're all keeping in touch at the moment. So, second week back in Queensland. Wow, there you go. It's going to be really interesting to see how all this pans out. Because everybody's going to be struggling now trying to get back to work. So that's going to make it very difficult for some people to sort of climb back up the ladder again, which is hard. And I know, you have visitation, but not good. Oh, you actually want to have your children staying with you or something. Is that what it's about? Maybe that's what you're talking about. Oh, well, as soon as the courts are up and running, I'm sure they'll be back on side. All right. Well, I'm going to call it a day. I have got lots to do. So I will see you back tomorrow. Thank you so much for joining me here today. Some of you would have missed the card pulls at the beginning. Karen, I didn't see your comment there. Are you always by yourself? You have nobody. That's pretty hard, especially in lockdown, if you don't have anybody around you. Keeping yourself busy is the trick. All right, I'm going. Have a wonderful day. Mwah. Much love to you, and I'll catch up with you tomorrow.